To expose or not to expose? If you're the owner of an old brick house, you may find yourself asking these sorts of odd questions. You may like the look of exposed brick, but is it worth the trouble? This is a job I recently took on. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I exposed, cleaned, and treated the brick walls in my basement and how I dealt with the challenges. The walls in my basement are covered in Portland cement plaster in various states of failure, from bubbling to straight up breaking. The plaster isn't original to the house and was never really meant to be there. Most of it wants to come off, but some of it needs a little more convincing. It's an issue mostly solved with a demolition hammer. That was the easy part. Now is where the real fun begins. Before I really got into it, I tried scrubbing a few different spots with soapy water paired with a wire and a nylon scrub brush to see where it would get me. When it's all said and done, these walls are going to get washed like this later. This will help me gauge what I can leave for the final bath versus what I need some muscle for. Ideally, the rest of this crap comes off with only one method of removal. We've got the original paint, some efflorescence, discoloration, and stubborn plaster that just doesn't know when to quit. The internet suggests a few different solutions for the tough stuff. Hit it with muriatic acid, sandblast it, use abrasives, or just live with the worst of it and only give it a scrub. Acid was out of the question for me, and sandblasting is a bigger than usual mess in orchestration. Abrasives are more my vibration, but what kind? There's so many. The trick is finding a balance between something that won't leave your bricks looking like Dr. Weir, but also keep you moving along at a reasonable pace. Many people say they've had success with stripper discs. No, it's not some fringe form of adult entertainment. It's more like a giant hairball dipped in automotive paint. They're used for stripping paint off of steel I-beams and trees. They apparently work for bricks too. I tried the drill bit version first and soon discovered this was going to be a very long road and that I had just wasted $7. So I ordered up angle grinder attachments. With that, I finally have everything I need to get this phase of the project going. Yeah, no. Listen. Even if you have some sort of onboard dust management, you're going to make a mess and cause a breathing hazard for you, and more importantly, your furnace. I suggest sealing off your work area and garnishing the proper personal protection. You may also need to upgrade your shop vacs filters to something more suited for fine dust. Shake them out frequently because you can lose suction quick. As for the stripper discs, they work okay on the lighter removals like loose paint and dirt, but when it comes to harder stuff like plaster, their efficacy is nil and their life is exceedingly short. I'm calling in an airstrike on the challenging spots. This is an 80 grit diamond wheel that should be used with extreme caution. It will eat through brick like water eats through cotton candy. So much for only one method of removal. No matter what kind of abrasive you use, you're still going to remove brick. If your brick is pitted, you may not be able to reach into the low spots without removing a more than necessary amount of material. It all depends on what you can live with. As for me, I'm not trying to make everything look 100% clean. The bricks were never perfect to begin with, and some flaws add character. Just a footnote, these are soft construction grade bricks that don't have a flashy decorative side like veneer brick you'd see on the facade of a building or a fireplace. Don't do this to veneer brick or you'll ruin it. If you pulled that off, you should have a healthy layer of dust on pretty much everything, walls included. It needs to come off. Save yourself some time and effort by hitting the worst of it with a vacuum. This should take care of 80% of the mess. The rest requires a little bit more elbow grease, but it should be a walk in the park compared to grinding. Oh boy, alright. Please don't be mad, but I jinxed it. Do yourself a favor and get a pump sprayer and an infinite supply of water. I started at the top and worked my way down with dish soapy water and a nylon scrub brush. You gotta really saturate the bricks first though, or your soapy water will just turn into a paste. Then keep scrubbing with regular water until it looks less muddy and more clean. Rinse and repeat forever.
The trouble is, you don't always know you really got everything until the bricks dry out. Maybe it takes 30 minutes and you go back over that spot. Maybe it takes a few days. Sometimes it doesn't matter how hard you scrub because that's just how the bricks are. It was really only necessary to bring out the wire brush for old paint. Again, going for more of a distressed charm here, so removing 100% of the paint isn't the goal. And by the way, if your house is an old house, the paint is more than likely full of lead. So please don't eat it. This is a basement, so I'm not too worried about excess water because it'll just flow into a drain. If you were doing this in, say, a living room, well, you'd have to get more creative with your water management. After the bricks were thoroughly scrubbed and left to dry for several days, I noticed there were some white mineral stains starting to show. Some areas more than others. Why? Well, these bricks stayed wet for too long. I really should have been running the dehumidifier while I was washing, but hindsight is 20/20. I raided the pantry and found a gallon of white vinegar. This should dissolve the mineral deposits much more effectively than the soapy water solution.
Listen, these walls were never really meant to be exposed. This is where journeyman bricklayers would hone their skills and try all sorts of crazy new shit that the world just wasn't ready for. But that's not really the issue here. Before exposed brick was cool, these walls were originally painted with special paint. Not only did this brighten up the area, but it prevented dust shedding while allowing the walls to breathe. In the old days, water had more of an open borders policy with home foundations. Water would permeate your walls and evaporate off into your house. The result is a musty smelling but much cooler basement during the warmer months. But unless you live in Venice, bricks don't stay wet forever and they shed dust when they dry out. Unless they're covered in something. When sealed off or waterproofed from the inside, water gets trapped in your bricks and causes all sorts of problems like mineral deposits or efflorescence, or the bricks just break down completely, which is bad. A clear breathable sealer will, in theory, keep the dust levels in check with the added benefit of not causing your walls to explode. As far as I can tell, this is really the only clear breathable sealer for basements on the market right now. It was not cheap, nor does it have great reviews, so this isn't exactly an endorsement. More like a horrific science experiment. What's the worst that could happen? Well, it fails to dry properly, the bricks continue to stain underneath and it just looks like shit, or it doesn't do its job at all in preventing dust shed. All that can be solved by scrubbing the walls again. Now, it wouldn't be great, it would be hundreds of dollars and days worth of work literally washed down the drain, but I can live with that possibility in the name of science.
I am, however, going to start on a small area before I go jumping off the deep end. Application is simple enough. Just load it in your pesticide pump sprayer and get pumping and spraying. Make sure you dump out all the pesticide beforehand. This stuff is expensive, so I didn't want to skimp out on a cheap sprayer that would kinda break and start dribbling this stuff all over the ground. You know how they can get. Alright, it's the next day and ground zero is looking pretty good. You can see the color is slightly different where the clear is, but I think it looks nice. Let's get the rest of it. The instructions say to stir vigorously, so I'm handling that in a quote-unquote easy mix bucket with some chopsticks, because that's all I could find. One coat is definitely all that's needed. This stuff was bouncing right off the test area. The idea is to saturate the bricks. The sealer will start to run and drip once they've had their fill. It's pretty easy to get a feel for. That being said, some areas are definitely more thirsty than others. Chances are those are the spots more likely to dry out and shed dust, so keep an eye out and make sure you get them nice and soaked. This is coming from a guy who's pretty sure that he missed a few spots. Now the instructions say to watch out for runs and drips, so I keep a paintbrush handy in case the stuff wants to pool up. Happy bricks. Yeah, that's nice. But overall, this was by far the easiest part of this whole ordeal. It may have taken me 20 minutes tops, and I only used about half the product I bought. I'm going to wash out this pump sprayer now and get this dehumidifier turned back on. We'll check back in a few days.
Well, it's been about a week since I put that clear up, and I gotta say, things are looking pretty good around here. I'm going to continue to keep an eye on things, but in the meantime, here's where we're at. Now, all in all, these walls were actually in pretty good shape underneath all that plaster, at least compared to some of these jobs I've seen floating around the internet. I'd say about 30% of the total area actually needed attention from the grinder, while the rest was just scrubbing down or touching up. And again, I didn't focus on erasing every single imperfection because, frankly, I didn't want to go crazy. I also didn't need to account for any tuck pointing because my grout is in good shape. You can expect a follow-up video from me in case anything goes horribly wrong in the near future, but until then, that's all I got. If you found this video useful, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. If you want to support the channel, check out my online store, mujincontact.com, where you can find all sorts of cool shit like stickers, prints, plans, and so on, all made by yours truly. Well, that's about enough of that. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Thanks for watching. Godspeed.